cloud. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight for our very first live Q&A with parents for Samford students who are interested in Greek life. My name is Julie Mincy and I serve Samford as the Director of Greek Life. I have my partner here, Louise. Will you say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Julie. Hey, everyone. Good evening. Glad you all are here to join us tonight. Hope it's helpful. My name is Luis Aponte, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Greek Life.
Tonight, we are joined by two parents with us. We have Belinda and Stephen Stroud, and then we have Sally Welch. We will get to hear from them directly. If y'all want to give us a little wave so they can find your box on the screen. We will get to hear their personal experiences as being a parent to Samford Greeks. So to share with you, one, we are recording so that this can be saved and it will be up on our YouTube channel. So if you need to reference back to it later, you can. Or if you need to hop off and you might miss information, no worries, you can find it again. The rundown of tonight is one, just to say hello and welcome. We're glad you're here. This is definitely new for us, but we hope we can be informative. We hope we can connect you with other parents, particularly our three representatives tonight that are Greek parents, so you can hear directly from them. We get some questions answered and we point you to resources that you can rely on through the summer and then the rest of the time while your student is at Samford. So tonight, Luis is going to be our question asker and I will be your information person and answer for you and then point you in the direction of some resources, and then we will move on to speaking with Belinda and Stephen and Sally about their personal experiences. So, Luis, are you ready?
Great. I'm so ready, absolutely. Yeah, Julie, how about we kick it off by giving everyone just a brief overview of our community and what it looks like?
That is awesome. So, if you don't know this, we have a thriving Greek community. So, depending on the semester, 45 to 48% of Samford undergraduates participate in a fraternity or sorority. That is about 1,700 plus students. So we definitely have a large Greek community on our campus, and they are involved in a wide variety of things. So chapters obviously have meetings and regular events, service, philanthropy, social activities. They're involved in leadership. They have educational programs that are a part of their experience. I think particularly for you to know, Luis and I are somewhat separated in how we operate our office and how we oversee the community. So there are 14 active fraternities and sororities on campus. And they're organized a little bit differently. So we call those categories or groups. We call them councils. And there's 3 councils on campus. So you might be familiar with College Panhellenic. That has the typical formal recruitment process. So there's 7 organizations in that council. 6 participate in the formal process, and 1 is a multicultural sorority that has an informal process. Then we have our men's groups in IFC. There's 5 fraternities there, and they have a formal process, and most of the groups have an informal process in the spring. And then we have our NPHC Council, which is traditionally our Black Greek letter organizations. Currently, our women's groups, AKA and Delta Sigma Theta, are active, and we're hoping for Alpha Phi Alpha and Kappa Alpha Psi to be active again in the fall. So that's important. Why do I tell you about our structure? So that you can know which process your student might be interested in. So that's just an overview.
That's great. Thank you, Julie. Okay, moving on to probably everyone's favorite subject, finances. Obviously, Greek life does cost money. Can you talk more about that, what it might cost?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's probably our most frequent question. Do you think?
I think so, from parents at least, yes.
Absolutely. So, parents, you're wondering, what does it cost? What do I need to budget? How will that work out? Well, in previous years, we typically would give a range. However, we are now able to share with you an exact breakdown of what your student would be responsible for. So, when it comes to finances, there's dues that go directly to the student organization at Samford to run and operate, but then there's also national fees. So if you're taking notes, this will be your first note for sure to write down. Samford.edu/Greek Life, which is our website. But check out the Finances tab. On the Finance tab, you'll see a red button and it says Financial Transparency. That will open you up into a new document, and it has a breakdown of all 14 chapters that are active on campus. So you can see the information for national fees, chapter fees, what dues look like. You'll see it in the form of a new member, and you'll see it in the form of an active brother or sister. So that does look different. Your student will pay the most as a new member because there's one-time fees to the national organization. And then when they move into active brotherhood or sisterhood, their fees drastically drop. So take a look at that. Again, samford.edu/Greek Life, and it's on our Finances tab. The document is called Financial Transparency. It is your best friend when it comes to a resource regarding what Greek life costs.
Yeah, that's great info. Okay, Julie, you touched on this a little bit at the beginning when you mentioned each council has their own process for joining, but can you touch on that a little more? What does the recruitment intake process look like for each council?
That's good. So we like to share about joining an organization in 3 ways: the formal, informal, and intake process. So if your student is interested in IFC or Panhellenic and wants to go through their first semester freshman year, meaning this fall, they would go through that formal process. Those 2 processes have an online registration component. The registration is live. You can find it on our website. You can find links on our Instagram bios. Your students sign up, they complete a short application, they tell chapters a little bit more about themselves, and then in the fall, they attend events that are very structured. We say, students, you have this event from this time to this time, you need to attend all of them, ideally ending the week with a bid to membership. But there are also informal options. Like I said, Delta Xi Phi, the multicultural sorority, has an informal process. And so they host a variety of events and then they pursue the student. And if they're interested in extending a bid to membership, they do at the end of their recruitment informal events. When it comes to intake, if your student is interested in currently, AKA or Delta Sigma Theta, they would attend an interest meeting, they would take an application, return that application, likely have an interview, and then they would go through their new member process once they were invited and extended an invitation to membership. So formal, informal, and intake. The formal processes will happen in the fall. We are hopeful for that. And they do have registrations, like I said, and they're live on our website now. So you can take a look at those.
That's great. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Another question we get a lot from parents is about time.
Yeah.
So can you touch on just how much time do you think these students will be committing to the fraternity sorority chapter each week once they jump in and join?
Good question. So time. Well, let's hope that we are back to a somewhat structured fall semester. So time will look very different for your student, but most Greek activities happen in the evening, so they can count on at least one meeting a week. So that would be their chapter meeting. Also, they could count on their new member experience meeting. So the new member process for some groups in MPHC might be 2 weeks and they meet multiple times a week. Or let's say IFC and Panhellenic, they're meeting 1 or 2 times a week, but it's stretched out over a 6 to 8 week period. So I believe, if I'm right on the calendar, right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, all of our students will be initiated members into their chapter. So education processes are 6 to 8 weeks. Time-wise, though, I think, Luis, if you have other examples, 1 hour to 2 hours in meetings, and then students can enhance their week's time by, well, are they attending a service event, or do they have a social that weekend, or did they get invited to another chapter's philanthropy or service or social event? So they can fill their week up with a lot of things if they want to. But when it comes to a chapter commitment, at least 2 to 3 hours a week. Don't you?
I'd say that's very accurate. Yeah, that's great. For sure.
Good.
Awesome. And we do see some of you asking questions on the side, so keep that up and we will get to those at the end. So thank you for typing those in. Okay, Julie. So obviously these men and women are coming to Samford to be students and to get a degree. So when it comes to concern about the students' academics, what can you tell us about how Greek Life supports those initiatives of academic success?
That's good. So first, when it comes to students interested in a process, so if students are interested in the formal process, do they have to have a certain GPA? No, but all of our chapters do have GPA requirements to remain active in the chapter. So that differs between all 14 chapters, and that is something the chapter sets. So that might be a 3.0 for some chapters. It might be higher. It could be a 2.75. Each chapter sets their own standard for academics. Most chapters do have an academic chair who works with students to get connected to resources such as the academic center on campus, the writing center, maybe even the care team. So chapters do put academics as one of their top priorities. This past semester, our overall Greek average GPA was a 3.5. Luis, correct me if I'm wrong. And so we are really proud of the academic commitment that we see in the Greek community. I do think academics and the time are probably the 2 biggest differences when it comes from being a high school senior into a college freshman, just because they might have had a very structured schedule. I know COVID threw that out the window, but when they get to college, they have so much free time. Maybe they only have 1 class on Tuesday. Involved and get deeper connected with the Samford community.
Great. Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay. So these parents are sending their child off probably for the first time on their own. So can you talk about how we prioritize the students' health, safety, and wellness, and any efforts our office does for that?
That's right. Okay. I will share with you. I talked to a parent today. I don't know if she's on because I see a lot of words in boxes, but we talked today and, she shared with me about this is my time to let go and I am excited for my student. But of course, I'm a parent and love and care and want the best for her. And so I want you to know that your student's safety, health, and well-being is our top priority. So that looks a little bit different in those categories. We are great partners when it comes to academic success, the care team, the counseling team. Our chapters do have requirements when it comes to education for their members. We want your student to have a safe, fun experience. We want them to get connected to each other within their chapter, the overall Greek community, and we definitely want them to leave the Samford Greek community better than they entered. So if anyone has particular questions in that, drop them in the chat and I would be happy to share more details about some of the educational programming that we offer to Greek students.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, Julie, one more for you.
Okay.
What changes might we expect in the fall just with current circumstances and COVID-19?
That's a loaded question, Luis.
I know it is.
I'm sure you're all wondering it too. And to be quite honest, we don't have a lot of official plans in place. So the university is setting the classroom experience first, like they should. And so they're going through and thinking about the students' experience in the classroom, classroom size, what that looks like, and how many people could be in a space at one time. And then they're moving into the event world, which is where we come in. So chapter facilities and meeting facilities, and what can that look like? We do have a large community, so we might have some hybrid experiences and encourage chapters to, maybe split things up into smaller groups, still having connection, but some of the sororities are 200 plus. That might not get to happen all at one time in the same chapter room. So we are still hopeful for in-person recruitment, whether that's formal or informal and intake. We are hopeful for in-person connection and community. So I know Samford is committed to that, and I think that we can strongly support that response. We want to be in person when it comes to as much as we possibly can to keep everyone safe and to keep our health as a priority.
Absolutely. That's great.
Was
Okay.
that
Yeah, those are all the main frequently asked questions that we came up with
okay?
on our end.
That's great. So how about we move into getting to know Belinda and Stephen and Sally. And while we're doing that, we can gather questions and then answer those after, because some might be for Belinda and Stephen and Sally, and then some might be for us. So how about Belinda and Stephen, and then Sally? Just say hello, where are you from? Tell us who you are and your student that we have in our Greek community at Samford.
We're Stephen and Belinda Stroud, and we actually just live right down the road from Samford in Birmingham, and we have a son that's a part of Greek Life at Samford, and he was a freshman last year, so he'll be a sophomore.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Sally Welch. We live in Austin, Texas, and we have a daughter, Lily, who is about to be a graduating senior, and we're super excited about that. She has one semester left, and she is a member of a sorority, has been since her freshman year.
That's so great. Thank you to both of all three of you. Sorry, I keep saying two because it's two squares on the screen, but thank you so much for being here, your time and your energy. I am very grateful. So let's kick things off. Belinda and Stephen, will you share with us, it's only been a year since your student joined the Greek community. So last fall, what was going through your head? What were you thinking when your student said, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to go to Samford and I want to be Greek?
Yeah, so we allow him to kind of make that choice direct if he wanted to do that. But, there were kind of understanding. We had lots of conversations about what would be appropriate. And we wanted him to make sure that he looked at all the opportunities there were for him and to be involved. And of course, studies most important, but Greek life is fun. It's a great way to be involved and get to know a lot of people. And he had a great experience. He bonded with a group of people. I will say that the benefit to have the way that you guys have it set up, in that the recruitment is after they start, is really positive, because they can make friendships with lots of people that maybe they won't be in the same Greek life, but they still have those friendships. Our son, still is very has great friends that are outside of his fraternity, but he's very close within his fraternity as well. So it's been a great thing for him.
That's great. Sally, what about you? Your student's a senior. So what were you thinking when she said, "Hey Mom, I want to join a Samford sorority"?
Well, in Texas, sororities are a big deal. So she was familiar with the process. She has an older sister who had gone through recruitment at a larger university. I had been a member of a sorority myself, so it was a very familiar process to her. She is our free spirit, however, and she went into Samford saying, well, I'm not really sure if that's what I want to do for myself. And I agree with Stephen and Belinda in that having those first few weeks to not be pushed into that immediately right away, which is very common here in Texas. That happens almost before students start school. And I know that's true at bigger universities in Alabama and Georgia and so forth. But it was super helpful to her to get to know girls on her hall and other people she ran into on campus. And so that the recruitment process was just an enhancement to what she was already experiencing as a student at Samford. And it was a very positive experience for her, and she did enjoy it. But she, as I say, she went into it very reluctantly. She wasn't sure it was what she wanted to do right off the bat.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So let's talk about the new member experience. All of the parents who are on possibly would have their student join this fall and would go through the joining process, the 6 to 8 weeks of learning about the organization and meeting new people and bonding as a pledge class. Belinda and Stephen, do you remember any experience that your son mentioned about that time, or concerns you had about the new member experience? Anything in that regard?
I think one of the things he really enjoyed was somewhat being required to meet all the brothers that were in the organization he's in and getting to know them. And I think that helped him get to know seniors, juniors, sophomores, not just his pledge class, but different guys from, some that have graduated, and he really got to be close to some seniors through that. So I think that was probably a highlight of his pledgeship.
That's great to hear that he got to connect with so many people. I think that is one of the benefits. Obviously, I'm biased, but I do really appreciate the connection opportunities that fraternities and sororities provide. Okay, Sally, what about you? How was Lily's experience being a new member in her sorority?
I think the beauty of not only the recruitment process, but being a part of a group pretty early on in your first semester was super helpful to Lily, because she'd gone a long way from home to go to school. And my husband and I were totally surprised that she even said she was going to go to Samford, even though we knew it was kind of her top choice, because she'd said, I'm going to stay in Texas. I can't go that far. So having that opportunity to be a member of a group very early on and have, the pledge classes are large for the girls. I don't know about the boys. So it was a great way for her to make friends quickly. And that is a huge positive, I think, about the process. And I think she appreciated that feeling of inclusion and feeling of being part of a group from the very beginning.
That's great. Yeah, finding your people and really thriving in community is definitely what we hope for students. So, okay, I have one question that I didn't send you ahead of time that I think could be helpful for these parents. And your student is 1 year in and now 4 years in, but how have you seen your student grow? And that could be just as a Samford student, as a Samford Greek, you know, how has your student grown and developed through being a college student?
I think our son's become a lot more independent. And even though we live in Birmingham, I kind of had an idea that he would come home maybe once a week and eat dinner with us, and that was not the case. He got integrated. I mean, after the second week of school, he's calling, wanting to buy a plane ticket to go to Texas, home with a friend he's met, and he literally did not spend the night at our house until Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So I think Greek life and just the way that Samford integrates students in general with the Connections Weekend and where they're living, their dorm rooms, and they're close together there, they get to know each other. He just found a community very quickly and became just a lot more independent and wanting to do his own thing. And it was a little bit hard for me as the mom because it's a huge transition for us as well. But I was very grateful that he had such a positive experience from the very beginning.
That's great. Well, if you'd like dinner dates, Luis and I,
Y'all come on over.
anytime.
Absolutely.
Sally, what about you? How has your daughter grown?
She has grown so much, I will say, and I'll step back and speak again about going so far away to go to school. And I'll be also incredibly transparent and honest. She had a bit of a rough go the first year. And I think it's important for parents to understand that regardless of how great the fit feels, how perfect Samford is for your student, and it is perfect for our daughter. We knew it, she knew it, but taking that step out and going that far was kind of tough on her the first year. So the growth that we've seen is maturity. It's also, you know, with age comes a lot of wisdom and independence, as Belinda was saying, and it certainly has been God's hand at work in her because we're super close as a family. We have 2 girls and we are quarantining together and we have been since March, and one of them is almost 27 and Lily's almost 22. So our nest is full again, and I'm grateful for it. But I think the greatest piece is that Lily noticed the growth in herself, and she saw her independence grow, and she saw her inner strength really start to shine through, and that's a beautiful thing to see as a parent. But I will say, I think be prepared, because it's not always smooth sailing in the beginning, and maybe girls are different. Maybe boys are a little easier to jump in there, but they'll get there. And I will just say as a blanket statement, Samford is one of the softest landings of a community and a college that I have ever witnessed. And they love those kids up one side and down the other, and they're there for your kids. So let them be there for your kids and remind your children, you know, that you are in a beautiful place where everybody is there to see you succeed. So lean on God and lean on those wonderful people who are on campus to help you.
Thank you for saying that, Sally. We definitely have open door policies. We have lots of students who spend their time in our offices, and that's some of our best experiences. I know during COVID we haven't had that, and we are ready to be back with the students, spending time with them and getting to know them. So that's a great addition. Thank you. Okay, advice. What would you say would be your biggest advice to the class of 24 parents? Belinda and Stephen.
I would say look at all the options. Don't just because your father may have been in a fraternity or your mother may have been in a sorority, that's the one that you chose. I was in a fraternity at Samford before, and so we advised him to look at everything and find that group that he fit with and was the good fit for him. And so I think that that really made a big difference, that there was no pressure there, because I think a lot of the kids could feel that pressure if they're a parent pleaser. And so I think that's one of the biggest things.
Good advice. Belinda, do you have anything?
Well, I think my advice to any freshman parent would be to let go and let God have it, because it is a time for them to grow up and for us to let go. And even though we've been kind of managing them, I guess we've moved away from that some over the past, when they're in high school, but still it's just different when they're not under your roof. And God will take care of it. And it's not always perfect and it's not always great. And there are days and times that they may call and think, oh my goodness, this is the worst day of my life. But then the next day they're a lot better usually, so it's not always going to be perfect, but they're probably I know that they're in the best place that they could be. Samford was wonderful for our son, his first year there.
Thank you. Okay, Sally, what advice do you have for these parents?
I just ditto everything Belinda and Stephen said. Honestly, I mean, that's the best advice for, and when I think about girls going through recruitment, I think there are a lot of things out there, and I don't know if it's still a thing, that their blogs or their written things about, well, this sorority is the best, or it's the top of the heap or whatever. And your kids are going to see that before they get to Samford. And Stephen is right. The biggest piece of advice is just go in with an open mind, because I'm a strong believer that you end up where you need to be. And if you do look at everything, as Stephen mentioned, and you just allow it to sort of happen organically for you and see what feels the best, that's where you're going to end up, and it's going to feel right. And you can find ways to be a leader, and you can find ways to be involved in very different ways within your Greek organization and also on campus. And that's one thing Lily did also, was sort of reach out and try to do some other things on campus. And they do have time for that. They will have time for that, and they should seek out those opportunities. And then I think the other thing, just to parents in general, and this is a hard lesson for me to learn. My mother used to say it to me: give your kids some credit. I've tried to just sort of manage, and here's your list, and here's where you go, and here's what you do, and all in an effort to help my girls. But they're old enough now and honest enough with me now to say, that was kind of getting him up in my grill all the time, so just believe that I know what I'm doing and that I'm not making huge mistakes, and let me grow and let me be me.
Great. That's great. Okay. Luis, back to you. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do have several that came in, so we can kind of go through some of those. And if anyone has anything to add, please feel free to do that. But yes, going back to finances, someone asked about that new member fee. So is that just in the fall semester, or will they pay that new member fee both semesters?
Yes, so your student is only a new member one semester. So if they join, let's just say fall 2020, so spring 21, they would be considered an active brother or sister, and they would refer to that price range and that breakdown. So only a new member one semester, and pay those one-time fees to their national organizations or whatnot. We do have a semesterly Greek Life fee that every student pays, and that goes to their Greek bill, their e-bill with Samford. And so that is a semesterly fee to the university. That's how our office operates and runs. We don't run on other tuition or fees, so only the Greek students who opt into Greek Life pay that. But those fees are the $75 each semester. That's to the university. And then you can follow the new member or active brother or sister fee breakdown for whatever chapter your student might join.
That's great. Okay. This is kind of a question that'll be hard to answer directly, but someone asked regarding bids.
Okay.
What percentage on average of students don't get a bid?
Don't get.
Yes.
Get a bid. Yes. So for 50, we have about 150 men go through the process. And so I've never seen more than 10 women released from the process. Now, when I say released, that means they are not invited back by any chapter. What I typically see more is that the student, both men and women, remove themselves from the process. And that reason is typically finances, or they weren't invited back by their chapter of choice, so they remove themselves from the process. Last year, we had an unusually low number that withdrew from the process.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if we had somebody withdraw. So very good questions. Overall, no more than 30 to 35.
Yes, that's good. Let's see. Okay, Julie. So we have a couple of questions that are similar, so I'm going to put those together. When it comes are you still there, Julie? I'm sorry. Were you good? Okay, there we go. Awesome.
No, you're good. I think I had an internet.
Yes, I think we're back. We're back. Awesome. So when it comes to transfer students or sophomores or other upperclassmen, how common is it for them to go through, and is it any different for them to go through the recruitment process to join?
Great question. If your student is transferring or an upperclassman, yes, we welcome your student. We definitely have upperclassmen. For the women's side, about 20 to 25 upperclassmen. They go through the same process. For the women's, they're in a different pool. So they are going through the same process and meeting the same people in the chapters and that kind of thing. But when we ask chapters to make releases for freshmen, they only make it for freshmen, and then they have a different number release for sophomores. So in a sense, they're only making selections of the upperclassmen separately and then the freshmen separately, at least on the women's side. And that's a national policy. So for the men's groups, we do sophomores and juniors, but
it's pretty common to have upperclassmen for sure, and transfer students on the guys' side.
All in one pool on the men's side.
Absolutely.
Transfer students and upperclassmen for MPHC intake, actually, that's what we see the most.
Yes.
Because those two groups require Samford GPAs before they can join.
Right.
So they are at least typically a freshman second semester.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. We did have someone ask to please address Samford's policy on hazing, and is that policy followed and enforced?
Great question. We'll be head on and very transparent with you. We do have an anti-hazing policy with the zero tolerance. Our student groups, whether Greek or non-Greek, sorry, that's the dryer, just like individual students would go through the student conduct process. So if a student group, fraternity or sorority would have a possible violation, they would proceed through that values process and be held accountable through the overall university's accountability values process. So I hope that answers whoever's question that might be. And we do have some philosophies on our website about anti-hazing, so that might be something you'd like to see in writing, and that's on our resources tab.
Yes, for sure. Awesome. Okay, registration form question. We did get this one, I think, in an email last week. But someone asked, the registration form asks what residence hall you're living in. Not every student knows that quite yet, so what would you tell them to do then?
I would say pick one, no worries. Your student can log back into their account, and once they know where they're living, they can change it to the accurate one.
Good deal. And another registration question when it comes to the form, one parent asked, sorry, I lost it. Okay, so concerning legacies, is it true that we confirm that students are advised not to state family affiliate Greek affiliations when they apply? So what do we say about that when it comes to legacies and putting those down?
So legacy is a good topic. I think that there's confusion we see a lot of students put their legacy status, like for example, if Stephen's son would have put his dad's information on his resume, we are discouraging that. But within the system, there is a legacy fill in the blank portion, and that's where your student should list their legacy status. Only the chapter who they have a legacy status with will see that. So Pi Kappa Phi and Pi Kappa Phi, they won't see if somebody is two. They'll only see their own individual chapter's legacy status. So that's for the men and the women.
Yes. So I don't think we necessarily would discourage them from putting that down since no one else will see it. Also, if your student happens to be a legacy of a different chapter we don't have at Samford, that won't be listed as an option, so they would just skip that part.
Oh, that's a good piece. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to recommendation letters, we have a couple questions about those. So what is the ideal due date for those for the women? And then also, is it required to print those out and mail them, or can they be digital?
Okay. One, I want to point you to the resource we have about recommendation letters for the women. And then Luis, I'll let you answer about kind of the guys' side. Sure. But on our FAQ tab on the website, if you click on Panhellenic Recruitment, read through those FAQs, but at the bottom of it, it does have all of the chapters, very detailed information about rec letters. So all of our 6 chapters prefer online submissions, and it explains what Chi-O calls a rec letter and AD-Pi calls a rec letter, because they all have different little tweaks of the name. So reference form or membership info form, they're overall just rec letter. And so your student can take a look at that and see who they might need to reach out to then submit an online form. So if you're looking for people to complete rec letters, I would just say do a simple Facebook post if your student doesn't have someone they know directly, maybe in a sorority, and you might be reaching out to your contacts. A simple post to find out who your Facebook friends that might be Greek would be a good way to start, at least. And then if not, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help.
Yes.
What about the guys?
Yeah, when it comes to the guys, so the men's fraternities, they don't even do recommendation letters, so they aren't required or expected at all. So I think they might even find it a little odd if someone submitted one, because they're just not used to that. So if you have a son, don't worry about that at one bit. He can just get to know the guys once he gets to campus. Yeah, okay. So we have a question about housing. So Julie, you want to talk about maybe Greek housing on campus? They asked tell us about sorority houses, who lives in those houses, maybe the men's houses too.
Yeah, so we have, let's see, 3 men housing options. 2 are run by the university, and 1 is run by the local housing corporation. And then we have 6 sorority residence halls that are all run by the university as well. So all of the housing, except for 1 group that has housing, everything goes through the Office of Residence Life. So I believe our website links to the Res Life tab, and the student pays for their room, just like normal room and board if they were living in a freshman facility or anywhere else as an upperclassman. I will say that fraternities and sororities do have a contract with the university. So they are expected to fill those beds at 100% occupancy. So most chapters have now put in requirements for live-in at least a year. I mean, most students want to live in the house and have that experience, but some chapters have also put that into their bylaws about living on campus in the facility.
Yes, and that could happen usually maybe starting sophomore year and then or junior year. So
freshmen stay in freshman facilities, residence halls, and I'm sure you're learning about those as they're signing up for housing and classes all right now.
good deal. Okay, we had someone ask to give us a little more information on what formal recruitment week looks like. So maybe break down the week. That's about recruitment counselors or rogamas for the women, rifles for the men. And are they given suggested dress recommendations?
Great questions. I will say this to point you to a resource first is that if you haven't downloaded the Samford Guides app in your app store, I encourage you to do that. We have a guide for fraternities and sororities. And so this will just be a place where you can go back and reference what the week looks like. All of the recruitment counselors, their names and bios are in there. And there's also GPA information and dress recommendations. So typically it's 3 rounds. The men actually have 4 rounds of formal recruitment. And both men and women have a counselor or advisor type. In simple terms, they're broken down into small groups and they have a small group leader guiding them through the process. And yes, in that guidebook app on the Samford Guides, you can see options of what your student can prepare in regards to clothing. So that would be your best resource when it comes to getting a better glimpse of what that week for formal recruitment, both men and women, look like.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a couple more little finance questions, maybe some clarifying questions. One is, do any chapters take trips or travel together? Are there expenses that you plan for with that? Then also that new member fee, when they're paying that in the fall, they pay the active member fee starting in the spring, or they start paying that the next year?
Good question. So yes, the chapters typically, both men and women, have some travel things like a new member retreat, but those are not out of the state. I want to say, Luis, we've seen a Six Flags trip in a couple of years.
Probably so.
That is all typically covered in dues, so it's not typically additional expenses. So we do see new member class, pledge class retreats, those types of things, overall chapter retreats, some brotherhood, sisterhood, fun activities, those kinds of things. But most of the time it's within their dues, which is why you might just see a larger blanket number for just dues, and then the chapter creates their own breakdown for the officer or, the person planning the event.
Mm-hmm.
The fall, so there will be spring dues. Like if they join in the fall and they're a new member, they would have fall new member, and then spring active member, and then fall active and active.
So you are paying every semester?
Yes.
Good deal. Okay, a good question. Are rec letters required for the women to get a bid?
Not a requirement at all. Students.
Yeah, we've seen women who haven't.
We've seen women who've served on Panhellenic Executive Board and they joined a chapter with 0 recommendation letters. So it's really up to the student. It's the student's choice.
Yes. Good deal. Well, that's all the questions we had in the chat box.
Luis, thanks for putting that resource there.
Yes.
Our last few resources, our website, Instagram, Samford Greeks, which is also connected to our Facebook account, and then the Samford Guides app. So check out our website. There's a lot of information. If something doesn't make sense or it's unclear, please reach out and email us. at greeklife@samford.edu.
Yes.
Thank you to Belinda and Stephen. Thank you, Sally. We're so grateful for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll end tonight, and we'll make sure this is uploaded to YouTube. Have a great evening.
Thanks so much.